Okay, here's another episode or another installment of my journey through 30 days of fasting. It's only day 2, so we're going to be reporting to you every day how that's going. My intention is to get in better health and to clear my system out and maybe take a little weight off, hopefully take a lot of weight off, and help out my knees and my hips and my joints and my pains and all those types of things. And just to give you a report, yesterday when I started this, I weighed in the morning 317.8. And this morning, I weighed 311.2. So I'd lost 6.6 pounds in a day. Now I realize that that's not, fat disappearing from me. It's primarily going to be just my everything coming out of me because nothing's going in to speak of, and loss of water loss and all those kinds of things. But it is encouraging to see the numbers going down, and it does make me feel slightly better, to not feel tight and stuffed all the time, which is how I have been feeling for a long time. And as far as how I'm doing, I'm doing okay. It's not been any terrible temptations to eat, but it is like a natural response. The first thing I think of is, okay, what am I going to get for breakfast? What am I going to get up and go eat? And and you have to shut that off and say no to yourself, because right there you're thinking about, if I have just a little bit, it won't hurt. And already on day 2, I'm having to tell myself, no, that's not what I'm here about. I'm committed to doing it. I'm committed to all of you to do that. It would be real disappointing to have this 30-day journey end in day after day 1. So I can't do that to you. Can't do that to myself. I did get some notice from a couple of my sons, or actually all 3 of my sons commented about it or spoke to me about it. My youngest son, Jacoby, wanted to make sure that I'm not just skipping food, but I'm doing something else with my body, like working out and that type of thing. And so I told him that I would be, and it's going to be a little bit hard to do that. I've never been a guy who got into exercise. That's one of the reasons I'm maybe at this point with my body. I've loved to play sports, been athletic, but never really liked exercise just for the point of exercise. As a matter of fact, one of the problems that I have in me is this disdain for the gym. And a lot of it's because of the kind of people that I thought went to the gym growing up. This is one of those things where you're having to reteach your mind to think differently. When I was in school, I got picked on a lot. As a matter of fact, during my freshman year, I learned after the first couple of days of school to not go to the boys' room between classes. Because I would be accosted while I was there, meaning that they beat me up and try to stick my head in a toilet or stick my head in the urinal and flush it over my head, and I was kind of picked on. And so those same people that did that were the same kind of people that were in the workout room all the time, So I began to associate those that tried to make their body look good and tried to gain muscle and all that with being a lot of jerks. I guess maybe I didn't know about testosterone in those days, but maybe I was associating people that seemed to be really high testosterone folks would be jerks most of the time. So I'm still, even at 65, I still have this tendency to do that. I actually hired a coach to help me for about 6 weeks, and I went 3 times a week to a gym, and he was there and supposed to be coaching me, and he seemed to be more interested in his phone than in me. Although he did some good teaching, but once again, it just didn't feel like my kind of place to be. I just didn't feel comfortable there doing that. And I've also been very self-conscious during all my life, really. Just so overly concerned about what people were thinking of me. And, I would suck in my belly all the time. Didn't want to do anything. Like I couldn't get out on a dance floor by my means. I would look stupid doing that, and I was just convinced that people were always looking at me, and I would never add it up to the people around me. I wasn't as good as them. I could make good grades, but when it came to the things that really counted, with the being popular and to be accepted and wanted, and to have girls want to be around me, never seemed to have any of that. Growing up, so there's a whole lot of issues in my head that I'm trying to battle with and overcome and speak truth to, and that's really kind of one of the things I want to talk about with you tonight is knowing the truth. Now, last night I spoke to you about how God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble, and how important it is for us to realize that we're in complete need of Him. We have nothing to offer God. It's only through His grace, only through His mercy that we can come to Him. Excuse me, we don't earn our way in any kind of way. There's nothing we can do to earn His love or earn His grace. It's simply accepting that, and we've got to accept that. We've got to realize we have nothing to offer except the ability to accept His grace. Now, that could make it seem like I'm also saying that we are worthless. And that's not what I'm saying. So this is where I want to make sure we balance things out. One of the things about walking with Christ and walking in the way that He would have us to walk is this idea of paradoxes. The Bible is full of paradoxes, things that don't seem to make sense because they seem to be the opposite of what we believe works. So let me give you the first paradox that associates with last night. We're to be humble. We're to not have pride. At the same time, we need to recognize who we are. And this is not to be prideful, but this is just to know the truth. God created us in His image. We're the only creation of His that He made to reflect Him and who He is. So that makes us a special creation. Doesn't mean that we should be proud of that. We should just know who we are. In the same way, the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, they began to think that they were special because God called him his chosen people. But in Scripture, it also says that I didn't choose you because you were special. I chose you because I just chose you. I loved you, I chose you, and I'm going to use you. But it wasn't because you're special. But over time, the Jewish people in Scripture, the Pharisees and the leaders of that day, began to think that they were better than other people because of the fact that they were God's chosen people. And the emphasis there is God's chosen people, not chosen because they were special. God chose them because He was going to show Himself to all the world through them. So, in the same way, we're not special in and of ourselves. We're special because we are created in the image of God to reflect Him. The Bible says that we are His beloved children. We're joint heirs with Jesus. That He says that we're holy and blameless. That is, of course, when we are clothed in Jesus' righteousness. That's what He does. He thinks that we are so valuable that Jesus came to die for us in our place so that we could wear His righteousness. He took on our sin and our unholiness. He took that on Himself and exchanged that with His righteousness with us. The Bible says that we are a delight to God, that He delights in us. So just because I said that we need to have humility and not prideful doesn't mean we aren't valuable. But that's one of the paradoxes that we have to learn from. And all throughout Scripture, particularly in the New Testament and a lot of Paul's writings and in the things that Jesus said, there's paradoxes. And this is what I want my kids to learn, my grandkids to learn, for people to learn. This is lesson number 2, is that we do not follow the thinking of this world. Because as you can see, as we go down through this little talk here, the thinking of this world is not the thinking of God. The thinking of this world is about ourselves, about, making sure that number one's in place, that be us, that we're taking care of us, that we are always looking out for, as I said, for number one, and everything is about our own gratification and our own movement and towards goals. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with goals, but it's about our thinking. God looks on our heart. And so our thinking, let me give you another paradox. Life coming from death. Isn't that interesting? That in the Bible, we have life because of Christ's death. And then he was resurrected to demonstrate who he was, but his death is what paid our payment so that we can live. So life comes from death. I mean, even look at it in the way he made the world. How do things grow? How do things blossom? It's because something had to die first. A seed had to be planted, it had to die. The Bible tells that. So life coming from death. Now, what that goes on to mean is to us, Jesus taught us that we have to die in order to live. He said to his disciples, if any man comes after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross. And the cross, of course, was an instrument of death. And Jesus had not been crucified yet when he made this statement. So the cross did not have the association it has now. It was simply an instrument of death. And so he said we got to take an instrument of death up and then follow him. So it's interesting that the paradox is different than what you're going to learn in this world, is that we need to look out for ourselves, and we count most. He says that we have to die. And he goes on to say that whoever will save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. So once again, it's about putting ourselves in a position where we're not number one. We're not what's most important. We are to set aside our own life, set aside our own desires and our own wishes, and to make sure that we serve him in the way that he desires. Another paradox, he said, the greatest among you is going to be a servant. Does that make sense? Of course, servants are supposed to serve the ones that are above them. But he said no, and he demonstrated this, that servanthood is how you become great. Paul wrote that when I am weak, then I'm strong. So it's through our weakness that we can be strong. Once again, going back to what I said in installment number 1, that we've got to understand we have nothing to offer, and we recognize our weakness so that we can become strong through him. He becomes our strength. Another one you've heard before, it's more blessed to give than receive. Well, people would naturally think that it's a blessing to receive, and it is a blessing to receive, but more blessed to give than receive. The Bible also speaks of the one who gathers is the one that is scattered. So, in other words, we receive by giving, which is exactly the opposite of what a lot of the world thinks. He also said, blessed are those that hunger. And we don't associate hunger with being blessed. I'm experiencing hunger right now, and I hope to work through that hunger and seek after something different. But he said, blessed are those who hunger after righteousness. And so it's our desire, our dissatisfaction with where we are that brings us the satisfaction of his righteousness. So we have to be in a place where we're always knowing who we are and that we're less than him. We are to die to ourselves, and we are to pursue him and his righteousness. He also taught to love your enemy, which is exactly the opposite of what we think today, that we are to hate our enemy, and that's we are to try to beat our enemy. And he said he talked about the if a Roman soldier were to compel you to go 1 mile, and back in those days, that's what they could do. A Roman soldier could say, "Carry my pack a mile," and you'd have to. But he said to go on and take it a second mile, which is, gosh, I did what I was expected to do. And he says, no, do more than what you're expected to do. Go beyond that. And the blessing comes in the second mile. The first mile is just simply everyone's even. You're compelled to do that. You're supposed to do that. Everyone's even. But if you give beyond that, then that's where the blessing comes. That's where in that second mile with those Roman guards, Christians could talk about Jesus. And Roman guards actually became converted to Christianity. They would surrender their lives to Christ, to Jesus, in that second mile. He said, turn the other cheek. What? When we're struck on one side, we're supposed to just turn and give ourselves to the other? It's not about just letting ourselves be abused, but it's about our mentality. Our mentality is one of being willing to receive punishment, to be willing to not be the one who is strong in the situation, in order to be able to be a witness, be an example of someone who is gentleness and kindness, and not someone who has a chip on their shoulder. He said, if you're asked for a coat, give him the cloak also. Once again, Jesus was all about saying, do more than what you're expected to do, the more you're compelled to do, and not just the minimum. That's a good lesson in life. So there's a lot of things that are oxymorons, they feel like, or paradoxes in walking the Christian life. That's why you cannot listen to the wisdom of this world, because it's not the way that the world thinks that we need to follow. It's God's way. And you can see that if we follow the world's way, we may be going the exact opposite, because his way doesn't make sense from the world's perspective. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're told to pursue, and of course, I do this. Everybody wants this, but it cannot become our primary motivator, and that's happiness. Now, this is a hard thing to do because our feelings matter. Our feelings really do matter. Our feelings are barometers to kind of say, what's going on inside of us. Is something wrong that we need to correct? God gives us that. He gives us a conscience, and he gives us our feelings to be able to help discern the world around us and the effect it has on us, and our own thinking. What do we need to change? But happiness is not the goal that we should have, because if we choose happiness above all else, then we'll also choose to do some things that are not part of God's plan. We'll choose to not be responsible at times, and to do something that's gratifying at the moment, but it may have a negative consequence down the line, and probably will. If we choose happiness over being responsible and mature, and sometimes happiness, many times we choose happiness over hanging in there in difficult places, different situations, then we end up being superficial, and we end up being someone that can't be counted on. So happiness is what life is not, is what life is about. And I've said that so many times, and we've all said that as parents, that we want our kids just to be happy. And I'm sorry if I've said that to my kids. Obviously, I want them to be happy, yes, but that's not what I want them to be primarily. I want them to be complete. I want them to be mature. I want them to be wise. I want them to be responsible. I want them to be someone you can count on, someone who's reliable, someone that you can trust, someone that has integrity. And those kinds of qualities are not built on just making the choice to make me happy in the moment. As a matter of fact, most of them are come about because we've chosen to do the hard things, make the difficult choices, and the things that don't provide immediate happiness, that do tell us that we have to hang in there at times. Now, that idea of being complete and mature is the same idea as the Hebrew word shalom. You've probably heard shalom being used to mean peace. It's used as a yes, as a greeting in Hebrew among Jewish people. But it means peace, is what we've been told, and that is true. That's part of the meaning, but only a small part, because shalom is the idea of being not only at peace, but being complete, having well-being, having everything all just working together. The writer of Hebrews in the New Testament talks about coming to the time where we have an internal shalom. And that is, of course, where we as Christians are moving towards, is to having that Sabbath time when we can be at peace and everything will work just right. So it kind of reminds me back in the 70s, it was the 80s, I'm sorry. There was the television show The A-Team, and George Peppard played a part, the leader of the group of the A-Team, and he said, "I love it when a plan comes together." Well, that's what shalom is, when everything is working right together. That's what I want for my kids. Shalom, not just happiness. And the only way to develop that is by not pursuing happiness, but pursuing character that God has for you. For instance, developing relationships. Relationships don't come just because you seek those people to be around that serve you, and then you discard them when you don't think they serve you anymore. They come because you're willing to give of yourself and demonstrate service. One of the paradoxes is that victory in life comes from surrender. I spoke last night a little bit about just the idea of surrender. It's not about committing ourselves to Christ, because that means that's my effort. If I commit, it's okay to commit yourself, yes, but that's not what being a Christian is about, is commitment, because that is about my effort. It's about surrendering to Him. So when we talk about following the ways of this world versus the ways of God, we have to seek Him in His Word and seek His direction in our heart, and understand that the direction of this world is not the direction He would give. Oftentimes it's exactly the opposite of that. So understand to not follow your heart, not follow this world, but understand that we are to follow His direction, and His direction is exact opposite of what this world has to offer. As a matter of fact, Jesus said very plainly not to put our hope into things of this world. Right now, I've heard the saying, and you probably heard it before too, that he who dies with the most toys wins. Well, that's not at all what Jesus taught. He said not to invest ourselves in the things that will corrode, will rust, and moths will eat. And just talk about anything in this world that is not eternal. And don't get caught up in all of that. And I know so many people, and you do too, that have been caught up in houses or cars. We always say houses and cars, but also just anything in life that is not permanent. That becomes our focus. And so we end up investing time in those things that aren't eternal, and we end up neglecting those things that are, like our family, or like our friends, or like our own spiritual development, our commitment to Christ, our relationship to Christ, our surrender to Him, and growing. We neglect those things because we're pursuing the things of this world. So it's about the way we think and where we value. Jesus said that our heart is, or our treasure, our heart is found in what we treasure. So where is your treasure? And I'll just finish this up by pointing out another paradox. And this is written by John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace. One line in Amazing Grace "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear." That grace teaches my heart to fear. The fear of God. He teaches me to fear Him because of His awesomeness and who He is compared to us. But then the second line is, "And grace my fears relieved." Isn't that interesting? Grace bringing us to the point of fear, but then grace also allowing us to have our fears relieved. We know who God is. We know He's awesome. We know He's capable of anything. But we also know that He's full of grace and full of mercy, and He loves us, and He values us. So although we understand who we are, we have nothing to bring, He values us to bring us everything. So that's my lesson for tonight, and I'll be talking with you tomorrow. Good night.